So in this edition of Book of the Beast, we're going to be going over Orc Boys. Orc Boys, of course, are the mainstay of any Orc army, and you should have a lot of them if you're going to play Orcs. So pretty much we're going to be going over a comparison to last codex first, and then we're going to talk about Orcs as if you've never played Orcs before. So there are three significant changes to Orc Boys from the last codex. The first one is that shooter boys have gone up a point. So there's still 6 points a model, unfortunately. I'm going to rant about that for a second. Everyone else's troops has gone down. Even guardsmen, fire warriors, guardians, they all went down in price. Not the orcs. So we went up in price. I don't know why, especially since they removed so much survivability from them between the mob rule table and the loss of the KFF. They've just lost a lot of survivability. They haven't gained the point reduction to make up for it. It's frustrating. It really is. I was expecting a difference. I was expecting something to happen with the Orc Boys. Something really good to make them the true, run forward and smash things horde that they should be. And the whole book just takes all that away. But anyway, so the biggest change, of course, is the shooter boys have gone up a point. They've gained stick bombs. Whoopee. And that heavy armor can be taken as many times as you want instead of just one unit. So those are the three big changes. Of course, they have Here We Go, Furious Charge, and they use a mob rule table. The knob prices are all the same. The rocket launcher has gone down 5 points, so the big shooter and the rocket launcher are the same price. I still prefer big shooters for the range, but especially with shooter boys, but I wouldn't mind putting rocket launchers in with slugger boys once in a while. I mean, I've got the models, so I might try it both ways. And they may take a truck as a dedicated transport. I'll actually cover the truck separately, so I'll be talking about boys more when we get to the truck. Sigh. Anyway, so Orc Boys are still your primary troop choice. They are still going to be, they're still weapon skill 4, toughness 4, initiative 2, so at least with stick bombs, hey, even they assault, Necrons and Tau through terrain, they can go with initiative 2. Color me excited. And they can throw that strength 3 template. Is that still a rule? Let's find out. Assault grenades, 180. Assault grenades. Yes, so you can still throw, one model can still throw a strength 3 blast at 8 inches. Anyway, now if the whole unit could throw grenades, throw 30 strength 3 templates, that would be fun. That would actually make it worth it, but unfortunately no, it's only one model in the unit can throw the grenade, which is kind of a letdown. But at least I guess they can do something. Anyway, so you're pretty much going to use these guys exactly like you did before. You're going to run mobs. There's going to be the truck boys of 12 guys, maybe -1 for a character. There's going to be mobs of 20 and 30, shooter boys or slugger boys, depending on what you want to run. This isn't going to change in the least little bit as far as using Orc Boys like you did before. If you're using shooter boys, though, you are going to go up in points. 30 points per unit. That's actually quite a lot. Because if I'm running 3 units of shooter boys, which I was doing before, that's 90 more points. And there's just no point reductions in the rest of the book to make up for that. I actually have to remove stuff from an equivalent list. In fact, the 2,000 point list I was running just on the old codex, I actually had to drop. It was actually over by 30 points, by 2,000 points. I mean, it's not a lot, but I shouldn't have to lose something on a new codex. I should gain some stuff. I didn't gain anything. I lost models, so I had to take out a Death Copter, basically, to match the same number of points. So I lost a model, a good model at that, and I'm less effective than I was ever before. But anyway, So we're going to use, so that's my rants, that's my talking about Orcs Boys. From, if you've played Orcs before, if you've run Boys before, you're going to do the exact same thing. You might have to take a few less of them, you might have to make some sacrifices somewhere else in your list because you've lost, because they cost more if you run Shooter Boys. And even more so if you take Ard Boys. But there's not going to be any change. So if you've played Orcs before, you can probably just turn the video off now. So what I'm going to do is go over, start talking about where Boys are really good, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how you actually want to play them. Orcs, of course, the difference between the Slugger Boys and Shooter Boys, other than the point, is really not that much. The shooters are, of course, the same exact strength 4, AP 6, assault 2, 18-inch range. Those are excellent guns for basic infantry. They really are. They're just top-notch weapons. They still have 2 base attacks on top of that. So they charge, they have 3. Maybe you're in a Weird Boy gets Warpath, so you still get 4 attacks on the charge. There's nothing bad to say about them. And with the new, and they have Eerie Ghost, so they always reroll at least 1 die when they charge. So they get to shoot with their assault weapons, charge in, rerolling 1 of the dies if they want to. They're great. Shooter Boys are just absolutely fantastic, especially in units of 30. You can just give them, you can give them a knob, or you can just, I don't always give them a knob, sometimes I'll just give them a mech, just so there's a character in the unit, a Weird Boy and a mech. In a unit of Shooter Boys with 3 big shooters, so 27 shooters, 3 big shooters, no knob. Give them with the Weird Boy and the mech, so they have characters in there for mob rule. But yeah, so, and then you can do whatever you want. That's the nice thing about Shooter Boys is they can run aggressively or they can run defensively. And I usually play them more, I like to call it passive aggressive when I play Shooter Boys. I don't have a tendency to run the Shooter Boys up. I may actually have to change that strategy overall due to the changes in survivability from the loss of the KFF. Because I would try to control the Shooter Boys are good for trying to control the assault because you move them up just into range, you can shoot at a good range because at 18 inches most things aren't going to be guaranteed to get a charge. So, and you're going to have some mobs in there, so you're going to get everyone into range. You're probably going to be, at least 14 inches away statistically. So there's going to be a band of like 2 inches of radius full of guys, and you're going to be able to shoot, and try to stay out of assault range. Don't be afraid of moving these guys back. That's what I do about that's why I call it passive aggressive. Because I'll run up and shoot something, then I'll run back, force them to come at me, shoot them again. Run back again, maybe if there's space on the table. If not, then I'll run forward and assault. So that'll give me 2 to 3 shooting phases, plus maybe an Overwatch turn if they try and charge me, before I actually get into combat. And that's where Shooter Boys are so good at board control in that way, being able to move back, stay in range, shoot, control the charge, control the board. Shooter Boys are just so good at everything, and when they get in combat, they're still strength 4, weapon skill 4. They charge in, they get 3 base attacks, and strength 4 on the charge. And there's still the hidden power claw in there. You can throw in a mech to have that a character next to the knob to absorb a challenge, so the knob can hit the rank and file guys. It's just excellent. Shooter Boys. I understand why they went up in price. I don't like it, but I understand it because they really are that good. If you're really aggressive with your Shooter Boys, you really don't need to be. I would say if you're going to run aggressive, especially with the price difference now, you probably want to run Slugger Boys. If you're just going to run up, move, wah, run, charge, then you'll probably just stick with Slugger Boys. There's no reason to, if you're just going to run forward to your opponent, there's no reason to run Shooter Boys at all. Slugger Boys, though, nice. They are cheaper, so they do now have a place. I've always thought that Slugger Boys should be cheaper than the Shooter Boys because they don't have the board control. They don't have the charge control that the Shooter Boys have. So I always thought they would be cheaper. However, I was hoping the Shooter Boys would stay the same and Slugger Boys would go down. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was hoping that should have happened. But I didn't write the book. And that's probably a good thing. So Slugger Boys, and of course, if you're going to run in a truck, I'd almost always give Slugger Boys in a truck, because 12 Shooter Boys just isn't going to be able to do what they can at ranged, and having those extra attacks was actually useful in that small numbers. Now here is one thing that's interesting with the truck as a dedicated transport. The restriction of 12 models is no longer there. So the unit may take a truck as a dedicated transport no matter how many models you put in the unit. So you can take an empty truck with a unit of 30 boys if you really want to. I don't know how useful that is, because now most of the units that did not have their own dedicated transports before now do. The tank busters, the burner boys, the flash kits, the ones that you would want to put in a truck or a dedicated transport, now do have a dedicated transport. So, and of course it is a troop choice, so you'd have to, if you don't put anything in it, they'd have to start on the table and then move the guys in the first turn. But it's just, again, something, or maybe you just take a truck and run it up with a rocket and just run around trying to shoot things. It'd be annoying. And it would be actually objective secure too, because it would come from a troop choice if you're running a combined arms detachment. So this is another thing that's a little bit different here with the truck. I haven't actually run units of 20 boys in a very long time, but now with the new rules, I think the units of 20 are probably going to be viable again, because they're going to be smaller, so you can be easier to keep them under a KFF if you want to run a KFF now. They can fit in battle wagons, which are, especially if you give them a KFF, battle wagons are excellent. Actually, battle wagons have always been excellent, but now they're, you'd say they're excellent. They're not any better or worse than they were before. Actually, they are worse because they're more expensive. But in most metas, you're not going to see a lot of anti-vehicle shooting anymore. Nowhere near as much as there was a couple of years ago. And so that gives you the options of, of where you put the boys. 20 boys in cover or hiding on an objective. It's going to be really hard to get out of. If they send something over to assault it, they're going to get destroyed in assault. If they're going to try and shoot them off and go to ground. Because that's the one thing about losing the mob rule, is that they can go to ground now no matter how many models are in the unit. I guess that's something I haven't really talked about, is the change to the mob rule where you lose the fearless means that you can go to ground even if there's 30 models in the unit. So if you're getting charged, if you know you're going to get charged that turn and you're going to get shot and you're getting shot, go to ground. Don't worry about it. Because if they charge you, well, then you come back normally. But you can do that now if you've got lots of boys in the unit, which is something you couldn't do before, which is very interesting, but really only comes into play when you're trying to sit on an objective, especially with a small unit that came out of a truck, or if you're about to get charged. It's about the only times you'd want to go to ground with boys. But you can do that now. So, smaller units, you want to stick with Slugger Boys. Larger units, you want to go to the Shooter Boys and learn how to control the board with them. Control the charges. Play the passive-aggressive game where you run forward, get a shot off. They come forward to you. Maybe they try and charge. You overwatch them, which is definitely never a bad thing when you're overwatching with orcs. And if they fail to charge and you move back, you shoot them again, and it happens again. You can just go back and forth, especially if you've got any sort of protection from cover or the KFF, or mainly really a pain boy. That's going to be your main protection nowadays, is the pain boy. But the Slugger Boys are just pure aggression. It's move, run, especially by the Warlord trait that allows you to reroll the run. Move again, wah, run, charge. I mean, that's going to get you across the table in 2 turns almost every time. Unless your opponent's sitting way back in, it's like Vanguard Strike, and they're sitting way back in their deployment zone, or if it's Hammer and Anvil and they're sitting way back in their deployment zone. I mean, you can get in charge or in turn 2. I wouldn't do that with Shooter Boys, so I'd rather spend the turn shooting. But pure aggression, just run forward. You want this. You want the Slugger Boys, especially for the price difference nowadays. Heavy armor. always viable, especially if you're running in truck boys. I would say every single unit of truck boys needs heavy armor. It's only going to be, what, 4 times, 44 or 48 points more, depending on how many models are in the unit. And it will add so much survivability to truck boys. It's not even funny, because trucks are horrible. I'll get to the trucks later, but trucks are horrible. But having heavy armor on the boys in the truck will make all the difference in the world, from not only the explosion of the truck, but the mob rule wounds as well. So I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. Orc boys are the backbone of your orc army. Still, you're not going to have as many of them, because you're going to have to pay more points for shooter boys, and you have to spend, as I said in my last video, you're going to have to spend more points on HQ slots to get that survivability. I think this video is run off just about as long as I want it to run on, so thanks for watching, and see you next time.